Hey guys, Stefan Fischer here from All Off Road. Thank you very much for joining me today. In today's video it's time for another review. It has been a little over a year since I mounted the Lazer Sentinel 9-inch driving lights, which did replace my Lazer Triple R 1250 light bar on front of the car. And I thought I'm gonna give you an update how I went with the lights, whether I like them. I will also compare them against the Triple R and against the UltraVision Nitro Maxx. So stay tuned. As a disclaimer, I have been given the Lazer Sentinel driving lights for testing and review purposes, so I haven't paid for it, but Lazer has zero influence over these review or the outcome, and I share as always my honest opinion of the product with you. Before we go into the actual light, I want to quickly discuss whether I think driving lights are necessary or not. To be honest, I think it depends on which car you are driving. If you have one of the more modern vehicles with very strong lights, it may be less of a necessity for you. However, for me with the cruiser, even with upgraded lights, the light output is abysmal to say the least. If I had to drive long distances just with my driving lights, even with the high beam, yeah, no good at all in my book. And I guess the second thing which is important to consider is what kind of driving you are doing. If you know you're never going to drive at night, obviously driving lights are really not that important. But for me, even though I never plan night drives, they always seem to happen at least once or twice on each trip. I personally think that additional driving lights are a safety device, because if I ever had an emergency at night, I have to get out of a sticky situation or I need to get medical attention quick, I really want to see if I have to drive at night. And with my Land Cruiser stock lights, I think it's actually dangerous to really drive at night, especially if you have to drive technical terrain or you have to drive faster than you usually would. So alone from that point, I definitely will always have additional driving lights. I guess the question is how often you will use them, and that will determine how much money you are willing to spend. For sure, even if you purchase some cheap steady lights or some eBay lights, and to be honest I've had them all, are better than no additional lights. But over time now, when I started to experience more high-end lights like the UltraVision, the Firelight, or now the Lazer, I definitely see a big difference in the light distribution between a cheap light and an expensive light. And also every cheap light or light bar I ever had, after a year or year and a half, it started to lose LEDs, it started to get water ingress. So again, you know, some people like to pay for good stuff, some people not. Both of it is fine. But there is definitely a big difference between an expensive light like the Lazer or a cheaper light like a steady, or even below that a no-name eBay light. Is the light output really important? In my early days I thought for additional driving lights the brighter the better, but I learned over time that is not necessarily really an advantage. For instance, when I had the Firelights, which go over 2 kilometers and are incredibly bright, no doubt about that, it also meant that on straight roads I have to switch my driving lights off very early, because otherwise you have trucks flashing you which are still a few kilometers away. Seeing 2 kilometers ahead is also not really a real benefit for me. It may be old age now, but with 55 years at night, I can't see what's going on 2 kilometers ahead. So say 900 meters to a kilometer is all I really need. Nowadays, far more important for me is a good peripheral vision, a good light output and spread without any hot points, and just a very even light distribution. And I think that's where the Lazer really shine. So good combination between spread and distance is the key for me. Until 2.5 years ago, I never heard from Lazer Lamps, so let me give you a bit intro and background information about the company. The company was founded in 2010 in the UK by Ben Russell-Smith, who has been working at the forefront of vehicle lighting design since 2002. He managed exterior lighting projects at Nissan and Ford Europe, so you could say he understands a thing or two about vehicle lighting designs. Lazer lamps are manufactured in the UK, and both of their manufacturing facilities are ISO 901 certified, which indicates a very high quality management standard. Lazer lamps are a big player in the international motorsport scene, and the lights are used by leading teams in the WRC, King of the Hammer, World Endurance Series and the Dakar Rally, to name a few. Lazer Lamp has Australian distribution, support and warehousing. I'm telling you this to show this is not a small company that puts together some Chinese LED driving lights, but a company that does their own research, development and manufacturing, which is all done in the UK and includes every component. So let me give you the specs of the Lazer 9-inch Sentinel Elite. The Sentinel Elite have a combination of 32 premium bin LEDs. Bin means that all LEDs come from the same batch and have the same light output and are not mixed random LEDs which have different light output, which is often done with cheaper LED lights. The lights have a color temperature of 5000 K, and having driven 4500 to 5700, I think 5000 is a sweet spot in between. The lights are IP68 and can be submerged to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. They have a overvoltage and reverse polarity protection and come with a 5-year warranty. The lights are unfortunately not manufactured in Australia, however they are designed, developed and manufactured in the UK. So let's now go into comparing the different lights and the output. Please note, this is not a scientific comparison, but rather a real-life review with footage from me driving out in the field. Obviously, ideally I would like to have the lights side by side in exactly the same environment, but that is just not possible for me. However, I do think it gives you a pretty good idea how the lights perform when you're out driving. I already have upgraded bulbs in my regular driving lights, but you can see what a difference it makes here. It's hard to capture these on film at night, but this shows the difference between the Lazer Sentinel and then when I switch them off and only have my driving lights. Here's an example of the UltraVision Nitro Maxx 180 I had on the Jeep, and then the Lazer Sentinel Elite on the Land Cruiser. The Jeep's UltraVision Nitro Maxx were slightly angled down because it was a play truck and I needed close-up light. However, I think you see quite well how different the light is distributed. With the UltraVision you have a narrow bright beam, and with the Lazer lamps you have more of a combination between beam and spread, and it is distributed in a very even way. The Lazer lamp provide you much better visibility on the side of the road where you quite likely have animals lurk at night. This footage here from the Simpson Desert also shows quite well how good the spread of the lasers is, and I really think with the Lazer Sentinel Elite you do not need an additional light bar, as a combination of spread and beam is excellent in my book. Let me give you one more direct comparison between Steve in his Troopy with two 7-inch driving lights and a light bar and my Lazer Sentinel Elite. Steve lights were no branded, but weren't particularly cheap. I think he paid $800 for both of them. But these kind of lights you pretty much get anywhere from King, eBay, Amazon, and I think they're all fairly similar. It really depends on what preferences you have for your lights. For me, the Lazer lamps are probably the best lights I have tested so far.
Yeah, so you're right.
Okay.
Yep.
If you turn yours down, you'll see the difference.
Yeah. Put yours up.
Put yours up.
So that are the lights here from
And now
our
yours.
friend.
Okay. Put the top ones up. Look at his.
Yeah, so.
One question I often get asked, and also was wondering myself, if the big round driving lights in front of the radiator would affect my engine temperature. So far I have to say they have not. And while I just returned from a desert trip, it was not a cross-country trip where we would drive at a very slow speed for the whole day. And we also didn't have extreme temperatures outside. Actually, we did have, but that was in the minus degrees. However, this is something I need to keep an eye on, and time will tell. But so far, so good. No increased engine temps. Hardly any product is perfect. So is there anything which I would improve or had issues with? Yeah, one thing I noticed with the laser lamps, that the bolts rattle loose. This one I nearly lost it. This one I nearly lost. This one is gone. And they were tight as. This one here is gone as well on that side. Have a look.
That's where it's supposed to be.
The only thing the bolts needed were spring washers, which were not supplied from factory. I spoke with Lazer, and that will be changed now, and each light will now be provided with spring washers for each bolt. I fortunately had some fitting bolts and spring washers in my repair kit, and that solved the issue. I'd like to mention one thing about the roof lights, and that is not specific to Lazer. That really now applies to any roof light bar I ever had, and I had quite a few in different positions on every vehicle I've owned so far. I think roof light bars had a merit in the early days when the LED light bars were far weaker, when they couldn't really deliver the distance and spread in the same light, and I did use them a bit more often then. However, I have to say nowadays I would not really get a roof light bar anymore, beside maybe for the reason that my Rhino roof rack makes quite a bit of wind noise without that roof bar. But that would be the main reason. I have hardly used my roof mounted bar, and that being the Lazer now, or before the UltraVision, simply because the driving lights and front mounted light bars are so good now, can really deliver spread and distance, and I just did not find that the roof light bar adds much to it. Sure, if I do technical rock crawling, the roof light bar gives a lot of light in a very close distance. So for technical driving, for having spotters, it may be helpful. And for a plate truck, I would run a roof light bar. But for touring, I hardly see me using it. And no matter what, I reckon you do have some reflection from the bonnet. I at least have. I also have some reflection from the antennas. While that is not a deal breaker, I just don't see that much benefit when I switch on the roof light bar in regards to effective light, which really makes a difference for me. So from my experience, I think if you have good driving lights or good front mounted light bar, you do not necessarily need a roof light bar as well. So let me give you my final conclusion. I really like the Lazer Sentinel Elite 9-inch driving lights because from what I have tested so far, the light output and the combination between distance and spread is just perfect for me. However, I still haven't decided whether I'm gonna keep the 9-inch driving lights or go back to the light bar, but that has more to do with my setup. As I mentioned, my Sentinels are very, very close to the hoops of the bull bar, and they do connect under heavy corrugation, and I think that was the main cause for the bolts to loosen and me losing them on the trip. Another smaller thing is weight. One of the Lazer Sentinels is around 2.5 kilograms, and I have two of them. The whole Triple R 1250 is only 2.5 kilograms, so I double my weight. No big issue, but just something to consider. And last but not least, they do take up a lot of room in front of the radiator and of the air conditioned condenser. While it has not caused me any issues so far, I'm not sure whether it would be the same on a 48, 50-degree day. And I do a whole day of slow desert crawling without much wind. I mean, it's got to make a difference. So I'm tending to go back to the light bar. even though I probably like the Sentinels just a tiny bit more for touring. So are the Lazer Sentinel lights for you? That is only something you can decide. If you want the highest light output ever and the furthest distance, the Lazer Sentinel would be not the right choice for you. However, if you want top quality lights, which what I reckon is the best light pattern and combination between distance and spread, I think the Lazer should be very high up on your list. Obviously, only you can decide whether this kind of money is worth it for you for driving lights, but I like quality products, and as long as they last and deliver, I think it's worthwhile paying money for good gear. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please help me and share, like and subscribe, and maybe even consider heading over to Patreon and become one of my Patreon supporters. With the equivalent of a cup of coffee or two per month, you can really help me creating these videos. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you along the tracks.